Hello, my beautiful internet friends. Welcome back to Trauma Talk. I'm your host, Joe Beckwith. We've been talking a lot about trauma. The channel is called Trauma Talk, and specifically about triggers in the last couple weeks, and I've done a number of videos on it before. I'll link some of those down below. And I had a conversation with a couple friends this week that made me think a little bit more about specific triggers. Trigger warnings have become a little bit more of a thing in our society, which I'm really grateful for, but there's only so far that that can go. Because I know, at least speaking personally, I have very personal triggers that no one else is gonna know about, that no one else can give me a trigger warning for unless I have very specifically warned them about it. For instance, one example of that is pink carpet. Pink carpet is not good for me. Pink carpet does bad things for my brain. I've worked through some of it, but sometimes it will still evoke a very visceral reaction because of what I've been through if I walk into a house and see it. But I'm not always gonna be warned about that. That doesn't deserve a trigger warning because that's not a universal thing. I think there are things that we can have trigger warnings for, as in trigger warning. This content contains discussions of abuse or harm or, fill in the blank. We can do general broad statements like that. But the reality of the situation is that we're never gonna have trigger warnings for everything, and there's no realistic way to expect that. At least for me, that was really scary, especially in the first couple years of my trauma, because I felt like I was constantly waiting for something to jump out from behind a corner because I never knew what was gonna set my trauma off, what was gonna bring a flashback, what was gonna cause a panic attack. I wanted to talk a little bit about dealing with that, dealing with places where we can't have trigger warnings, where we can't reasonably expect that, and also where we can communicate that in a healthy way. I ran into a situation on my other channel, Footless Joe, a few days ago where someone commented on one of my videos saying I should have put a trigger warning on something that I have no context to know about. It's a specific thing for their life, for what they've experienced, for what they've gone through, and my heart breaks for what they're experiencing and what they are continuing to deal with. But what I said that triggered them had absolutely nothing to do with trauma. It wasn't making light of anything that is a heavy topic. It wasn't anything that I would know to give a trigger warning for. And I'm a big fan of giving trigger warnings in serious situations with serious topics that affect a broad audience. But like I said, I'm gonna have specific triggers that you don't know about. You have specific triggers that I don't know about. There are sometimes ways that people speak, or ways that people's faces are shaped, or specifically ways that people form their words and I watch them talking that remind me so much of the abuse that I went through that I get so anxious and so agitated and used to cause flashbacks and all kinds of really upsetting thoughts that no one can warn me about, that is just going to happen. So how do we reasonably deal with that? The first thing that I wanted to talk about is dealing with triggers and trigger warnings in the context of relationships. How much do we expect from the people around us? I am in a relationship. I've been married for 5 years now, and it's taken a long time to get to a place where we have great communication about my triggers, what they specifically are. We have a pretty good understanding of that. Brian, walking into this relationship, had no idea what I had gone through, and then as he understood what I had gone through, he didn't know how that related to everything in my life. Like, for instance, loud noises. I have a really hard time with loud noises still. If someone jokingly goes boo loudly, it takes a long time for my body to calm down. I feel my entire system spark up and get ready for a fight, even if it's completely a joke, and I'm looking for danger for the next 30 minutes, and it's not funny to me because it hurts me, it physically causes me a lot of distress. Loud noises in a house, for instance, if my husband would turn on a blender without me knowing and it's quiet and all of a sudden there's this loud noise, it puts me on edge. It makes me hyper alert, hyper vigilant for a long time. But turning on a blender in and of itself doesn't deserve a universal trigger warning because, no one's gonna know that unless you communicate it to them. So what expectations should we have of people in relationships? And by relationships, I mean friendships, family members, romantic relationships. I'm a big fan of communication. I also realize that it's one of the most difficult things on the planet, specifically specifically when you've gone through trauma. I have struggled so hard to put things into words. I've just wanted people to get it. I've just wanted people to understand. I've wanted to telepathically communicate things, because trying to form words about what I have gone through and how it affects me and how I need to be treated to get to a better place because of it has just been, like I said, a struggle. But it's been a struggle worth going through. The people who matter, the people who are routinely in my life, the people who I call friends, who are family members, who I have relationships with, it's my responsibility to communicate to them if I want some kind of warning, if I want some kind of safer space to exist in moments when I'm trying to relax or have a good time. It's my responsibility to communicate things that are going to be very difficult for me to deal with. And part of me hates saying that, but it's unfortunately the reality of the situation. None of us want to go through trauma. None of us ask for it. None of us deserve it. However, unfortunately, it does happen. And the crappiest part of it is that we're left to deal with the aftermath of it. It sucks that there is responsibility involved in dealing in the aftermath of trauma. But if I want to hang out with friends and I don't want to hear jokes about abuse, even super offhand, super topical, not, intended in a harmful way, I need to communicate that. I need to say, hey, these don't go over with me. Please don't say them in my presence, and here's why. If loud noises are a thing for me and I want that to be respected, I need to communicate that and let people know, hey, it obviously isn't your responsibility that I went through trauma in my life, but here's the situation, here's how it affects me. I'd really appreciate it if you give me a heads up before something really loud happens, if you know that it's gonna occur. And for the most part, if someone cares about you, they're gonna respect that. For the most part, if someone cares about you, they're gonna do that. They're gonna do that to the best of their ability. Maybe not perfectly 100% of the time, but they're gonna try to think about it. And if they don't respect that, you have every right to not hang around that person, to not be in that person's life if they're not willing to respect your requests and your boundaries. I think the same thing goes for content online or in other forms of media. For a long time, like I said, I had a lot of triggers, and even going on social media, like I thought it was a safe place, I thought it was fine. I was looking at pictures of people's cute cats and kids and whatever as I was scrolling through Facebook, and then I'd come across a post that was like dealing with some kind of news article where someone would make a statement about people who had, been assaulted, and it was so triggering to me. I was just like going about my day, sitting in a coffee shop, looking at Facebook, and all of a sudden I was set off for the next 24 hours and in a really, really bad mental place because of the way my body and my mind was reacting to seeing this stimulus. So is it the world's responsibility to never put out any content like that, to never, make statements about the things that people believe, or to never discuss anything that relates to anything I could have gone through? Obviously not. People are going to talk, people are going to say things, and it's really great when there are trigger warnings and there are spaces that we can find, like trauma-informed groups and forums and things of that nature, and people, but the world at large is never going to be safe for triggers and for trauma. And I think it's important in those situations that we have a way, that we have a strategy in place for what we're gonna do with ourselves when that happens, because it sucks. Because I've experienced it many times, it's difficult to deal with. So what I tried to do was to come up with some kind of plan of action. It was helpful for me to separate myself from the situation, and I'm just talking about me. This might not be the healthiest way to do things, but like for instance, if I ran into something on Facebook, it was sort of my initial urge to want to write everything that I could about how wrong they were and go on this just in my head crazy rant, and I needed to shut the computer down, generally go outside or go driving where I felt more free. I felt less trapped, less confined. There's more stimulus, but it's in a controlled environment, especially when you're driving, because you're safe in your car. At least that's how I always felt, where my body could start to calm down. I would listen to music where I'd start to calm down. I'd work on breathing exercises where I could start to kind of calm down, realize that I was in my body, I was here, I was safe, I wasn't in a flashback, and bring myself back to kind of a normal level, which takes a long time sometimes, and sometimes still takes a long time, and it took a while to learn what worked and what didn't. But having some kind of mental and physical safety plan for when you are triggered, because chances are that's gonna happen no matter how careful people are around you, no matter how respectful people are. If we walk out our front door, we open our laptops, we watch a video, someone might say something that reminds us of what we've gone through, and that's hard to deal with. So having a plan in place can be one of the most effective ways of feeling like you have a little bit more control of that situation and getting through it. I'm curious what you think about all of this. This is something that I feel like is a little bit delicate to talk about and touch on. Again, if there are people in your life who love you and care about you and you've communicated to them, hey, these are the things I need respected, they should respect those. And if they aren't respecting them, that's worthy of a conversation and removing yourself from that situation if it's not a good or a healthy place for you to be. Having some kind of mental safety plan or action plan for when you are triggered, and maybe writing that down, because I don't know about you, but not a lot of conscious thought is happening when I am triggered. A lot of it is just erratic and instinct-based. I'm not totally in the moment. And so if I can pull up my phone and I have a note that tells me exactly what I need to do, that can help to kind of bring me back to where I am in the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please share down below in the comment section. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that button right down there. And if you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel by also clicking a button that's right in that general vicinity. Thank you for listening, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon. I appreciate all you do for me. I love you guys. I'm thinking about you. I hope you're hanging in there, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.